I'm Lucy, 31, and if you asked if I ever had big dreams, the answer's a resounding yes. I once pictured myself as a singer, captivating entire rooms with my voice, but reality hit hard. After college, I landed a stable but uninspiring job as a credit officer at a small bank in Raleigh, North Carolina, mostly to pay off student loans. Then, I met Nathan at a college reunion. He was charming, had an easy laugh, and, more importantly, he understood my abandoned dream. Turns out, he'd also pursued the arts, specifically dance, before choosing a business path to meet his family's expectations. We started dating weeks later. My mom's constant "when will you settle down" nudges, combined with Nathan's initial attentiveness surprise gifts, outdoor dinners softened me. He doted on me, at least at first. Everything felt like a fairy tale. A year later, we married. I quit my job, choosing to focus on our family. Encouraged by Nathan, who was doing well at a financial consulting firm in Charlotte, he said I deserved a break after years of hard work. But soon after the wedding, I started to see his family more clearly. Nathan's younger sister, Ivy, was 3 years our junior. His family claimed nerve damage from a childhood fever left her unable to speak or walk. Heartbreaking, I thought. Yet, Ivy didn't seem sorrowful. She communicated through drawings and a letterboard, and I slowly learned to understand her. Through her eyes, her smiles, and her gentle gestures, we shared a special connection. She understood me in a way no one else did. My mother, Linda, was another story. She scrutinized me constantly, as if I were a product she could return. Every visit to her house felt like a pop quiz. "Don't leave Nathan's shoes like that," she'd snap. "He'll look like he has no job. And who'll respect his wife then?" I'd force a smile and put the shoes away. Linda's perfectionism felt suffocating, making me feel small. To her, Nathan was still her little Nathan, and I, his wife, was an outsider. We lived in a small apartment 20 minutes from his parents' place, yet Linda always seemed to know when I was alone. She'd call, or worse, show up unannounced with groceries and a list of instructions, treating me like a new housekeeper. I'd hoped marriage meant a peaceful home. But I'd entered a family with an unspoken hierarchy where my sacrifices were just expected duties. I never imagined Ivy, the silent, helpless one, would be the key to changing my life. I don't recall exactly when things shifted. Maybe a few months after our first anniversary. Nathan stopped smiling when I handed him coffee, stopped asking if I'd eaten lunch. The small gestures that made me feel loved simply vanished. He started coming home late, blaming long meetings. I'd eat alone, convincing myself he was just busy, but the distance between us grew. He avoided my questions and remained silent when I did. As Nathan grew more distant, I grew closer to Ivy. Despite my mother-in-law's disapproval, I visited often. Ivy would be waiting by the window, sketchpad ready. Her drawings, little houses, cats in hats, kites flying revealed a vibrant, intelligent spirit, far more perceptive than anyone gave her credit for. I started learning sign language in the evenings, after Nathan was asleep or absorbed in his computer. What began as basic greetings became a bridge between us, an escape from the cold world, echoing with Linda's sharp words. "I don't understand why Nathan chose someone like you," Linda once said after I helped Ivy clean her room. "Ivy might like you, but that doesn't mean I have to." I stayed silent, knowing it was my clearest form of resistance. "Nathan, he never defended me. That's just how Mom is. Get used to it," he'd shrug. Eventually, I stopped telling him, and he stopped asking. One early fall evening, I brought homemade pumpkin bars for Ivy to Nathan's parents' house. As I walked in, I saw Nathan and his mom laughing together in the living room, a sight I hadn't witnessed between us in ages. "You're here tonight?" Nathan asked, clearly not pleased. "I made these for Ivy," I replied, setting the tray down. "You didn't mention you'd be here." "No need to mention it," Linda interjected, her eyes cold. "Family can come by any time." Her words sounded warm, but I knew they weren't for me. I found Ivy by the window, hugging a blue pillow, no sketchpad. She blinked slowly, as if asking, "Are you okay?" I forced a smile and signed, "I'm fine," but my hands trembled. That night, Nathan said almost nothing. "Is there something you're not telling me?" I finally asked. He flinched. "What kind of question is that?" "I don't know," I said. "I just feel like you're not fully here anymore." He sighed. "It's just work. Don't overthink it." Don't overthink again. I knew my instincts weren't wrong. Something was happening. I, once cherished, felt like an outsider in my own marriage. Ivy was my only light, but I didn't know her light would expose all the secrets Nathan and his family had been hiding. About 3 weeks later, on a quiet weekend morning, Nathan walked into the kitchen, looking uneasy. He set his phone on the table and looked at me cautiously. "Lucy, do you have any plans for next week?" he asked hesitantly. My heart quickened. He rarely asked about my schedule. "Nothing planned." "Why?" He paused. "My family decided to take a trip to Hawaii. My parents, and me too." I was surprised, even a little excited. Hawaii, the place we'd planned for our second anniversary. But his expression dimmed my excitement. He clearly wasn't inviting me. "So, what about me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, the sting of being excluded already rising. Nathan stared at the table, avoiding my eyes. "Lucy, this time, it's just a family trip. Actually, there's something important I want to ask you." A wave of unease washed over me. I took a deep breath. "What is it?" He paused, then said, "My family would like you to stay home and take care of Ivy while we're gone." I froze, disappointment crashing over me. I'd sensed the distance, but never imagined such blatant exclusion. "Take care of Ivy," I repeated, disbelief clear. "Why not bring her?" Nathan sighed. "Mom said it would be too difficult for Ivy to travel that far. Plus, she thinks you're the best person to care for her. You're close to Ivy, right?" He said the last part carefully, trying to back me into a corner. Just then, the doorbell rang. Before I could move, Nathan answered it. A minute later, Linda stepped in, her usual stern expression. "I believe Nathan already explained everything to you, Lucy," she said, her sharp eyes fixed on me. I stood in my small kitchen, feeling a suffocating weight. Nathan remained silent, beside her. "Do you have any objections?" she continued, daring me to challenge her. I was fuming, but I chose not to show it. Instead, I gave a faint smile and replied softly, masking my deep disappointment. "No, of course not. I'd be happy to take care of Ivy." Linda nodded, clearly satisfied. "Good. We can enjoy our vacation knowing Ivy will be well looked after." Nathan turned away, avoiding my gaze. After his mother went to the car, he came closer and whispered, "I'm sorry, Lucy. I didn't mean to put you in a tough spot, but everything's already been arranged." I looked up at him, hiding my emotions, and said quietly, "Sounds like you made your decision before asking me, didn't you?" Nathan was quiet for a moment, then said under his breath, "I didn't have a choice." He walked out quickly, leaving me in the silent kitchen. I'd done everything to please this family, and this was my reward: indifference and decisions made without me. Yet, in that moment, I realized one thing: at least I wouldn't have to deal with Linda's scrutiny for a few days. That afternoon, I went to Nathan's parents' house to see Ivy. She was by the window, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. I sat beside her and signed gently, "I'm going to stay here with you for a few days, okay?" Ivy looked up, her big eyes blinking as she signed back. "They left you behind again." I was startled. It was the first time she'd used that phrase. I nodded, no longer hiding the truth. "Yes, they went to Hawaii." Ivy stared at me for a moment, then signed something that stopped me cold. "We have plans too. They'll be surprised." I stared in disbelief. She just smiled, her eyes holding a mysterious glint I'd never seen. That's when I realized, maybe Ivy truly understood the secrets this family was hiding. And what she was about to reveal would show me that being left behind might be the opportunity I never saw coming. The next morning, I opened the living room curtains in my in-laws' house. Warm spring sunlight poured in. The house was unusually quiet. Nathan's family had left for the airport early that morning. No more Linda's complaints, no more judging, glares about my sweeping. I made a cup of coffee and brought it to Ivy's room, a vanilla blend she liked. She was lying on her side, gazing out at the lavender bush her mother had planted. I knocked softly and entered. Ivy slowly turned her head, and what happened next flipped my entire world upside down. She pushed herself to a seated position. I froze, eyes wide. It was as if all sound had been muted. My heart pounded. I thought I was dreaming. What are you doing?" I stammered, unable to hide my shock. Ivy let out a soft laugh, then, unbelievably, spoke. Her voice was gentle, yet firm. "Calm down. Don't freak out." I nearly dropped the coffee cup. "Ivy, you can talk. You can walk." She stepped out of bed, taking solid, steady steps toward me, no trembling, no hesitation. "I never lost the ability to walk or talk," she said calmly. "It was all an act, one I had to keep up for years to protect myself." I couldn't speak. Memories flooded back, pushing her wheelchair, comforting her after Linda's scoldings. Had it all been fake? "Why?" I finally asked. "Why would you do that?" Ivy sat down, motioning for me to sit. Then she began to speak, her voice clear and even. "I'm Nathan's half-sister. His dad had me with his first wife. My stepmother Linda never saw me as family. After my dad passed, she gained full control. I was a burden, something she had to tolerate. When I had a high fever at 10, she didn't take me to the hospital in time. And she was the one who told neighbors I had brain damage. When I recovered, I chose to stay silent. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. You pretended all these years. Not forever. Just since I realized that the weaker I appeared, the less attention they paid, and the more freedom I had." She smiled. "You, though, you were the only one who saw me as a real person, not a responsibility, not a burden." I sat stunned, the pieces falling into place. Her knowing looks every time Linda lashed out at me, the quiet smiles, the subtle winks. All along, Ivy had been alert, watching, waiting. "But why now?" I asked. "Why tell me this now?" Ivy stood, walked to the closet, and pulled out a small suitcase. "Because we're going on a trip," she said, her voice unusually upbeat. "You didn't really think I'd sit around and watch them have fun in Hawaii, did you?" My jaw dropped. You're going to Hawaii?" She nodded firmly. "Plane tickets, hotel, everything's ready. And yes, you have a ticket to Dad left me some money before he passed. I saved it for the right moment." I shook my head, still stunned. Ivy looked at me, more serious now. "Lucy, you need to see who Nathan and his mother really are. You deserve the truth. And trust me, Hawaii is where everything changes." I looked into her eyes, no longer timid or passive. Standing before me was a strong woman who had stayed in the shadows long enough, waiting for the right moment. I took a deep breath. Maybe for the first time in months, I felt chosen. Not to serve, not to please, but to finally rise up and face the truth. I smiled. "If you're ready, then so am I. Let's go." Ivy nodded, her smile blooming. And just like that, the journey began, not just to Hawaii, but toward the truth behind the marriage I once believed was peaceful. The flight took off early morning. I sat beside Ivy in economy, still a little breathless. Everything had happened so fast. Just yesterday I'd quietly accepted my role as the one left behind. Now I was flying to Hawaii with this everyone thought was helpless. Ivy wore a loose white shirt and simple jeans, her hair tied back, sunglasses on, looking like any confident young traveler. Every now and then, she'd flash me a playful smile, like we were winning a secret game only we knew about. Still shocked, Ivy tilted her head as the flight attendant handed us drinks. I exhaled and shook my head slightly. Not shocked exactly, just, I never imagined things could turn around like this. "Sometimes," she said, sipping her orange juice, "it takes a shock to wake us up from a bad dream." I stayed quiet. She was right. I'd been living in a distorted dream for too long, believing in a love, a family, that wasn't real. After nearly 6 hours, we landed at Honolulu Airport under the blazing sun. Ivy hailed a pre-booked taxi to a luxury beachfront resort in Waikiki. Blue ocean, white sand, salty breeze. Hawaii was breathtaking, but I hadn't come here to relax. At the front desk, everything was paid for in Ivy's name. She quickly handed me my room key and subtly signed for me to stay quiet, as staff were nearby. Once in our room, I couldn't hold back. "Ivy, where did you get the money for all of this?" I asked quietly. She took off her sunglasses, smiling with that same mysterious calm. "Dad left it for me. I kept it safe, untouched, until it really mattered." "But your plane ticket, the hotel, the taxi, all of that must have been really expensive." "Dad told me to live for myself, and I feel like this is the moment." I nodded, my eyes fixed on the ocean outside the window. "Where are we going to see them?" Ivy pulled out her phone, opened a restaurant reservation app, and showed it to me. "Tonight at 7 p.m. poolside restaurant." His mom booked a table for 6 o'clock, just like their family tour schedule. "And you're sure they don't know we're here?" "Positive. I booked us in the same resort, but a different building. They won't run into us unless we want them to." We spent the day resting in the room, snacking on fruit and crackers. Ivy suggested I try to forget everything for a while, but I couldn't stop thinking about what was coming. I felt like I was stepping into a grand play, except this time I wasn't a passive audience member. I was the main character, about to walk onto the stage. Around 6 p.m., Ivy did her makeup lightly, tied her hair up, and put on an emerald silk jacket. I chose a long navy dress, simple but elegant. We both looked different, not like the underestimated women back home, but like two people in control. On the way down to the restaurant, Ivy squeezed my hand. They're going to be shocked, but don't get too angry. Let them expose themselves. I nodded, my heart pounding as we approached the poolside restaurant. We hid behind it. Ivy whispered, "That's her." My stomach dropped. "You mean she's the one Nathan's been seeing?" I saw messages from an unknown number on Mom's phone when she left the table. They called her the backup plan. I said nothing, my head spinning. I looked back at the table where my husband was smiling brightly, as if I never existed. He leaned in and whispered something to the woman, making her laugh hard and place her hand gently on his shoulder. Ivy looked at me. "Ready?" I tightened my grip on her hand, a cold smile forming on my lips. "Yeah, time for the real show to begin." We positioned ourselves behind a row of palm trees, a few steps from Nathan's family table. Under the warmth, lights, glasses clinked, and laughter filled the air. Linda was beaming, raising her glass of wine, no trace of the cold, judgmental woman who had criticized me so often. But what truly stunned me was Nathan sitting so close to that unfamiliar woman. She looked polished, young, confident, her hand resting casually on Nathan's, like it belonged there. There wasn't a hint of guilt on his face, no sign he'd just left home, abandoning his wife to care for a supposedly unable to walk sister. Not one check-in, not one look of regret. Ivy quietly slipped a small phone with an earpiece into my hand. I placed a recorder under their table before they arrived. She whispered, "I'm sure they'll say something you should hear." I slid the earpiece in, my hands going cold as their voices rang clearly in my ears. "She's never been anything special," Linda said sharply. "Hasn't done a thing for this family. If you're divorcing her, at least." Nathan's voice followed, low and firm. "I'll figure something out, maybe say she's emotionally neglectful. My lawyer says if we play it right, I won't have to give her a dime. I could even come out ahead. The girl next to you looks promising." Linda chuckled. "Compared to Lucy, like gold next to rotting wood." I pulled the earpiece out, my lips pressed into a tight line. Ivy looked at me, not asking, just waiting. I nodded. We stepped out from the shadows and walked straight toward the table. I moved slowly, each step echoing against the wooden deck. Nathan looked up first. The stunned look on his face nearly made me laugh. Linda froze, her hands mid-air, wine glass suspended. "Good evening," I said, my voice strong and clear. "Hope everyone's enjoying dinner." "Lucy," Nathan stammered. What are you doing here?" Before I could reply, Ivy stepped forward. All eyes turned to her, and without saying a word, she calmly walked over to the table and pulled out a chair across from her stepmother. You're walking." Linda could barely speak. "I've been walking and talking just fine since last year," Ivy said, her voice soft but icy. "You always liked to see me as a burden. I just played along to help you live in that illusion." Silence fell over the table. The woman next to Nathan quickly pulled her hand away, her face going pale. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recording, and hit play on speaker. "If you're divorcing her, at least reclaim the assets." Linda's voice, double quotes, "say she's emotionally neglectful." Nathan's voice, "Other diners began to notice us." Curious stares turned toward our table. Nathan shot up from his chair, his voice shaking. "What are you doing? Are you seriously trying to humiliate me in public?" I looked him straight in the eye and said each word sharp and clear. "You've been doing that to me for over a year, just not in public." Linda snapped. "Lucy, we can explain." "No need," I cut her off. "I've heard enough, and I have the proof. I'll be speaking with my lawyer as soon as I get back. This divorce won't be quiet." Nathan rushed toward me, trying to grab my hand, but I stepped back and raised mine to stop him. "And you," I said, my voice colder than ever, "you'd better be ready to face the consequences of your lies." The woman next to him stood up, clearly trying to leave, but Ivy called after her. "You might want to prepare to meet with a lawyer too. I'm sure you know what you've gotten yourself into." Nathan clenched his fists, his face burning with rage and shame. "You're ruining my life." I laughed, calm and unshaken. You already did that yourself, Nathan. I just pulled back the curtain. Then I turned and walked away with Ivy, leaving behind the soft lights, expensive wine, and a table full of lies. Nathan ran after us, his footsteps pounding along the stone path. I didn't turn around, but Ivy glanced back at him, her eyes cold as ice. Lucy, you can't do this, Nathan shouted, his voice cracking, no longer composed. You're trying to destroy my life. I stopped walking, turned, and looked straight into the eyes of the man who used to be my husband. No, Nathan, you did that to yourself. I'm just the one showing the truth. But if the company finds out, I could lose my job. His voice trembled, filled with fear. Standing next to me, Ivy crossed her arms and tilted her head, her tone full of sarcasm. Oh, then maybe you should have thought about that before taking your mistress on vacation and trash-talking your wife while she was home caring for your paralyzed sister. Nathan turned to her, speechless in shock. I shook my head. I didn't come here to cause a scene, but you and your mother pushed me past my limit. Now you'll have to deal with the consequences. Just then, the restaurant manager arrived with 2 security staff. One spoke politely but firmly. Excuse me, sir, you're disturbing the other guests. We're going to have to ask you to leave the dining area. Nathan opened his mouth to protest, but when he saw the stares from nearby tables, he fell silent. He let the security team escort him out, looking like someone who had just caused a public scene. I stood still, watching until his figure disappeared behind the glass doors. As for Linda, she didn't say a word the entire time. Her hand gripped her wine glass tightly, as if letting go would shatter everything. When I walked away, she remained frozen, her eyes no longer proud, just hollow, like someone who had just lost all the control she once held. Ivy and I walked back to our room without speaking. We both knew things were only going to get more complicated, but a strange sense of relief flooded through me. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't stuck in a role someone else had cast me in. The next morning, I called North Carolina and contacted a law firm recommended by an old college friend. They arranged a meeting with an attorney named Marilyn Carter. Her voice was calm, steady, and firm, giving me confidence from the first minute. I told her everything: the cold marriage, the blatant betrayal, the voice recording, and how Nathan took another woman on vacation while leaving me to care for Ivy. I didn't leave out a single detail. Marilyn nodded. You're entitled to file for divorce with clear evidence of infidelity. And given your husband's job status, we can also request post-divorce financial support. If that woman had a romantic relationship with him during the marriage, you can file a third-party interference claim against her as well. I paused, then said firmly, I want to do everything legally possible to seek justice. We'll take care of the rest, Marilyn said with a reassuring smile. And trust me, you're not alone in this. In the following weeks, everything moved quickly. My lawyer gathered solid evidence: hotel bills, photos, audio recordings, and messages Ivy helped retrieve from her stepmother's old phone. It was all added to the case file. A month later, I received the official notice. Nathan was ordered not only to divide the marital assets but also to pay spousal support for the next 3 years. On top of that, the other woman, Melon Harper, was sued for alienation of affection with a civil compensation demand. When the first payment hit my account, I looked at the number on the screen and didn't feel triumphant. Instead, I felt like I'd reclaimed my voice, not because of the money, but because, finally, no one else could define my worth. Ivy handed me a glass of non-alcoholic apple cider, her smile glowing. Congratulations, no one can ignore you anymore. We clinked glasses, and the smile on my face felt as soft and steady as the ocean breeze that day. 3 months have passed since the court ruling, and my life looks completely different now. The small apartment I once rented with Nathan has been replaced by a top-floor unit overlooking Pullen Park in downtown Raleigh. I moved closer to my old college, like I was hitting the reset button, but this time with a heart no longer afraid. I returned to finance, but now I work as an independent consultant. I choose the projects I enjoy, work with clients I respect, and most importantly, I have the power to say no to anyone who makes me feel unsafe. No more manipulation through fake words, belittling looks, or cold indifference like Nathan and his mother once used on me. I still stay close with Ivy. After everything, we're not just former citizens-in-law, we're survivors, women who chose to rise. Instead of settle, Ivy moved in with a close friend in Asheville, and finally started the graphic design course she'd always dreamed of. She once said, You were the first person who believed in me enough for me to live honestly. I smiled. Her bravery had lit a fire in me too. One quiet weekend afternoon, while I was tending to my balcony plants, the doorbell rang. I was a little surprised. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, I saw Nathan and Linda. Both looked nothing like I remembered, gaunt, dark, circles under their eyes, clothes worn out. Linda no longer carried her powerful presence. Instead, she looked drained. "Lucy," Nathan spoke first, his voice weak. "I know this is unexpected, but could you help us?" I stood silent, not inviting them in, not saying a word. He went on. "I lost my job after the lawsuit. They let me go without pay. Meline. She left me when she found out I had nothing, and my dad walked out on her. She's out of money. It's just us now." I looked at Linda. She lowered her head, something I don't think she'd ever done before. "Lucy, I was wrong, so wrong. But I have no one else now. I just hope you can help us through this." The silence lingered. Only the wind rustled through the trees outside. I tilted my head slightly, then spoke slowly. "Funny. I once begged the two of you for just a little kindness, and now it's your turn." "Lucy, I know you hate me," Nathan stammered, "but I've realized my mistakes. I truly have. Just a little help." I cut in. "I don't hate you, Nathan. I just regret wasting so much time thinking you were worth it." Linda's eyes were red. "You can't be this heartless." I smiled softly. "I'm not heartless. I've just learned how to set boundaries, and mine is this: I won't go back to anyone who once disrespected, used, or betrayed me." I calmly closed the door before they could say another word. Before heading back inside, I walked to the corner of the balcony, opened the jar of sea salt I'd prepared earlier, and sprinkled it along the threshold, my own little ritual. A way to sweep away whatever darkness had once entered my life. I don't believe in superstition, but I do believe in symbols, and to me, that handful of salt was a clear declaration. The past no longer has a place in my present. Inside the apartment, the sunset was casting the western sky in a brilliant orange hue. I sat on the sofa, hugging the knitted pillow Ivy once gave me, and felt my heart completely at peace. Not all endings are perfect, but some endings are necessary. For me, this wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the end of a life lived in silence, and the beginning of a life I chose for myself. From my own experience, I realized that sometimes strength isn't about holding on to a relationship, it's knowing when to let go. I was betrayed, dismissed, and left behind, but those very things helped me rediscover my worth. Life doesn't end when someone walks away from you. It truly begins when you decide to move forward for yourself, and I hope that anyone reading this finds the courage to choose their own happiness.